Now, the web is the most powerful data source. Harvested properly, businesses can understand their audiences better, be more competitive with pricing, and generate more leads. But historically, to be able to access this valuable data, a specialist developer is required to programmatically get it. But the problem is, less than 0.5% of the world's population know how to code. Even more shocking, less than 1% of software developers have web scraping skills. With the no-code movement, the power shift is happening. With the distribution of opportunities and advantages in knowing how to web scrape, it's created a much, much bigger web scraping market. So what exactly is no-code web scraping? For the purpose of this presentation, I break it down into 3. 1, no-code tools, low-code tools, and pre-built or ready-made tools. So this is what a no-code web scraping tool would look like. You'd usually have a very, very nice interface, drag and drop, point and click, and you'll be able to visually pick the elements you want from a web page. They'll typically have no option to be able to write any code or custom code. And they come usually as Chrome extensions, desktop applications, or SaaS tools. Low-code web scraping tools are very similar to no-code. They do have a visual interface, but they'll typically have some sort of option to be able to include some type of custom code. They also come in very, very similar formats, desktop applications and cloud applications. And then you have your pre-built or ready-made tools. This would also have a visual interface, but they'll usually come in templates, and you would have a very fixed scope of what you can do, and you'll be able to do some configurations. And they usually come as cloud-based tools or platforms. So these are some of the players in the space that have some no-code options. This is by no means a representation of the entire market. It's just some particular tools I played around for this presentation. So as you can see with some of the definitions we gave above, there's a good variety of no-code web scraping tools depending on your use case or your preference, Chrome extension, desktop, cloud, pre-built, and there's a number of vendors in those spaces. So why is no-code so important? The number one reason is that they have opened up the web scraping market. And the web scraping market, I believe, is much bigger because of no-code. According to Gartner, 65% of applications built are going to be no-code in the future. Most large enterprises already have no-code web scraping stacks. And the no-code market is just growing and growing exponentially. What does this mean for us in the web scraping market? Just more opportunities for us, a bigger market, and a different set of people that are actually going to use our tools and create more innovation. Number 2, they've actually forced us to make the web scraping experience simpler and easier. No-code users don't have the skills to be able to write code or create solutions, so they require things to be very simple and visual. And these are some of the ways which the tools make things easier. Development cycles are a lot quicker. Documentation is less because everything is visual and you can visually see how the processes happen. Testing is reduced because some of these tools have templates that are centrally managed. Deployments are quicker. And also there's a reduction in the pressure on IT with the introduction of citizen developers. These are people usually in the business who know how to build solutions using no-code tools. So when should you use a no-code web scraping tool? So I created a very simple graph that explains when you need to bring in a professional software engineer specialized in web scraping. And that would typically be when you need to create very custom capabilities very frequently. So are these tools actually any good? I actually spent some time and I reviewed some of them personally. So these are my findings when I played around with all the tools. So in terms of speed, with some of the desktop applications, it's very good because I could use my own infrastructure and proxies and control how fast I want it to go. But with the cloud-based ones, I noticed the speeds were always controlled, and usually you had to pay to get faster speeds, etc. In terms of quality, I had a very inconsistent experience. It was really dependent on your skill level of knowing how to use the tools. But with the pre-built ones, because everything was fixed, you couldn't really do much. It was a very consistent experience. In terms of customizations, there were some limits to how much you can customize, but with some of the low-code ones, there were more options to be able to customize. With the pre-built ones, it's very little or none scope to be able to do any customizations. In terms of cost, I was actually able to use some of them for free, like the Chrome extensions. But when I looked at some of the cloud providers, the cost could go into the tens of thousands, depending on your volume. In terms of limitations, they were limited to the feature sets of each product. But I kind of got stuck with that whole problem, which everyone has talked about, is the infrastructure and the banning and stuff. And those are one of my limitations. In terms of maintenance, we talked again about all the problems that we have with web scraping, and those problems are usually around infrastructure, proxies, and managing all that. So what I found is that when I used any of the cloud-based solutions, they already solved that problem, so the maintenance was a bit reduced. And scalability, which is one of the misconceptions of no-code, low-code. Everyone thinks you can't really scale, you can't use it for a lot of big projects. But what I found is the cloud actually solves that. So most of the providers that have no-code solutions, as long as they had some sort of cloud option, they really protected the user from all the things that happen in the background in solving all that difficult problems, and all the user presses the easy button, and everything looks like it works. So this is a summary of the limitations I found after using all the tools. There is a learning curve with all the tools, apart from the pre-built ones. I had to spend some time to actually understand how to use the tools. So it wasn't as easy as often advertised. There's limited functionality, and that just depends on the feature sets of each product. There was a lack of flexibility and customizations for very, very complex use cases. And as someone pointed out to me, you don't own the source code. So let's look at some use cases. I picked out some of my customers, and let's see if no-code could actually solve some of their problems, the no-code tools. So this is Mike, he's the CTO of an e-commerce company. He monitors a lot of the marketplaces. He doesn't want any of his devs working on web scraping. He wants them focused on the core products. He wanted some of his managers to have autonomy to be able to go into a tool, manage and configure stuff visually. And he didn't want to manage any more infrastructure. So looking at the charts we looked earlier, these are how we can solve some of his problems. In terms of maintenance, we looked at some options there, a visual interface and cloud-based. And this is the solution for him. So he could actually use low-code, and he actually used our tool. Another use case, Alex, a data analytics manager. He's monitoring his competitors' websites. He does have a technical team, but no one actually is an expert in web scraping. But they did want the ability to be able to do some small configuration and customization, and they had a very consistent set of data. They wanted a pipeline with very low disruption. Solution for him, no code, low code in terms of doing some customizations, low code options. And then that consistent recurring data, a pre-built solution, and a cloud option solve that problem. Okay, how are people using no code, low code? I looked at some of what our customers are doing and their tech stack. This is a very traditional pipeline of a very, very core no code user. They will typically use any one of the no-code tools, and then they'll use some integrated SaaS tools like Zapier to be able to push the data into an Airtable or into an analysis tool like Google Sheets, and then their work starts. Some more sophisticated low-code users would use the low-code tools, push the data into some sort of object storage like S3, create the data into a warehouse, and then push it into some analysis or visualization tool, and then their work starts. So these are my thoughts around how you build a successful low-code, no-code web scraping tool. The very first thing is the UI UX. Low-code, no-code users have been spoiled with incredible no-code tools that are available on the market. So they have a very, very high bar and expectation around user experience. So that's something that I always keep in mind as we build. Templates. It's almost so important to get people quickly started with some sort of templates. For us, we have over 500 ready-made tools publicly and over 1,000 privately. And this gets the user very, very quickly engaged with the tool and can start doing something. Integrations matter. Most no-code, low-code users are pushing data to different applications before they can actually start doing their work. So why not make it easier for them to just be able to just get that data from your web scraping tool to wherever they want to actually do the work. Now, where do I see the future of no-code, low-code web scraping? This is not a new trend. This is the trend that's been going on in every industry for a long time, but I see more cloud-based solutions. And when I talk about cloud in terms of web scraping, this is just abstracting that managing infrastructure, managing the servers, all the tools in the background, all that fingerprinting, all these kind of things, abstracting it from the actual end users and giving them a very nice interface to be able to create the initial scripts. But I see more vendors that have desktop applications having a cloud-based option. I see existing vendors that are doing web scraping create more no-code products. So I see proxy providers, I see traditional professional services, companies doing web scraping, creating some sort of no-code products to be able to give this growing audience. I see a bigger market. Since I've been involved in the market, it keeps growing and growing, and there's so many reasons why it keeps growing. And I think one of those reasons is the introduction of a lot of no-code users. And of course, AI and machine learning introduction into web scraping. I know Zeit have a product that's heavily used this. I see that being embedded into a lot more no-code products. Okay, my final thoughts, which I leave you with, is should every business have a no-code web scraping strategy? And my thoughts are, if you're in the business of web scraping, I think it's imperative that you have some sort of no-code tool because it's an extra opportunity to be able to generate revenue with a very, very big and fast-growing market. If you're a business that does a lot of web scraping, I can see we've shown so many different use cases that no code could be applied to, and it doesn't all have to rely on developers. Thank you very much.